Okay, I want to talk a little bit about practicing and making progress in your practice. Tai Chi is an amazing thing, and just the sheer practice of it has lots of benefits. You'll feel better just to start. But if you want to actually advance in your practice, especially as you're starting to learn, whether you're a beginner learning the form, you're somebody who's already learned the form, you're taking on sword or push hands, you're somebody who's learned a bunch of the practices and is coming back and trying to deepen what you're doing, you need to actually do that. It won't just happen by magic. It's not just a matter of doing the same thing over and over, day by day, waiting for that bolt of sudden enlightenment. Tai Chi is a path of gradual enlightenment where we work, we learn more, we understand more, we work, we learn more, we understand more. Bit by bit, you're developing skill. So as you are practicing, whether you're a bare beginner or somebody who's practiced for a long time, here's some useful tips. The number one thing you need to do is you need to have a consistent practice. That the Tai Chi happens in your practice. It doesn't happen by watching a video of me talking or of Beth and myself practicing. It happens in your own practice. This is one of the ways that Tai Chi is different from some other things where, for example, people go to class and that's the only time they'll practice another art. In Tai Chi, your personal practice is the key. So the very first thing you need to do is develop a consistent practice. We were taught that you should practice every morning before your morning ablutions, which I love because how often do you get to say ablution? The thing that's key is actually carving a time out in your life and in your day when you can practice. So first thing in the morning is nice because the responsibilities of the day can roll over you and take that away. I spent many, many years traveling and consulting and being on the road. And for me, practicing first thing in the morning in my hotel room, before I checked my email, before I got on conference calls, before I met with clients, was really important because otherwise it would just never happen. These days, I tend to practice later in the day. I give myself a mellow first thing in the morning and eat my breakfast and drink my coffee. But that's because my life is set so that it doesn't get away from me. But the thing you have to do is you have to practice consistently. If practicing every single day starts to feel like a burden, go ahead and give yourself a day off a week. But if you start giving yourself 2 and 3 days off a week, then you'll be 4 days off a week. Then you're practicing maybe once or twice a week. That's not a consistent practice. So whatever you're doing, make sure you have a consistent practice. For beginners, this is key. This is why we start with the animal frolics. So as a beginner, you've got something that's fun, relatively lighthearted, makes you feel good when you do it, and you can just practice it. For people who have studied longer, do a mix of the things that you're doing. The form is the most important. So if you're only going to do one thing, do the form. But you've got to have a consistent practice. So that's number one, consistent practice. The second thing is what we call conscious movement. So you need to become aware of the details of what you're doing, which sounds kind of stupid. But if you actually pay attention, you'll discover that when you're doing Tai Chi or whatever it is, that there's things you're just not aware of. So for a beginner, this starts simple. Start with the externals. You need to know where your hands and feet are. Is my hand in front of my shoulder or not? So it looks silly from the outside, but if you look at your own practice, you're likely to find you don't know where your hands are. Is your hand facing you, or is it facing away from you? Is it facing up, or is it facing down? Is your wrist bent or not? Are your fingers flat, or are they curved? So just start with these really simple things to actually know where you are. Where are your feet? When you're in a 70-30, is your front foot pointed straight or is it pointed out? And I know those of you who have practiced for a long time will say, oh, no, I know where my feet are. That should make it really easy later on today or tomorrow when you practice to check that your feet are actually where you think they are. And you might discover that you need to spend some more time on the exact placement of your feet. So as a beginner, start from the externals. Start from the extremities, your hands and your feet. Where are they? Move on to the torso. Is the body upright or not? Where are the hips facing? So conscious movement means you're actually aware of where you are. As you develop your practice more and you become more advanced, there'll be many more things for you to be aware of. Are you locking the shoulder joint, or is it opening and closing? What's happening in the hips? Are you able to use the two hips differently? So there's just on and on and on. As you develop something new, you'll come back and you'll now have new cognitive skills. You'll be able to understand better where you are in space, what the motions you're making are. This is conscious movement. Now, all of these things that I'm going to talk about today are on a spiral. It's not like, oh, okay, consistent practice, check, done, off my bucket list. Because all of us will have issues over the years and decades with consistent practice. So when you find yourself in a rut, or you find that it's just not happening for you, look, are you practicing consistently? And if you aren't, figure out a way to do that. Then, conscious movement. As you learn something more, as you learn a new practice, you'll have a whole nother level of conscious movement. So you're going to keep coming back to this. Then the next three kind of go together, and they are technique, skill, and principle. So when you learn something new, when you're learning the animals, or you're learning the form, or you're learning push hands for the first time, or you're learning the sword form, you're learning particular drills, any one of those, you have to get the technique down. So you have to learn the externals. I put my hand here, I put my foot here, I have the sword at this angle, I address my partner in push hands this way with my hearts of my palms on their joints. You know, whatever it is, there's a set of technique, and you just got to learn those. So beginners who are learning the form, you have to learn the external postures in the form. So you just have to get all that technique. Then once you've got sort of the bare technique in place, now you can start looking at what the skills are that are illustrated by those techniques and that enable those techniques. So we've got a bunch of videos, and we'll keep doing more, and this is a big thing we do in class, where we're working on those skills. So the skill of separating the weight, so you can actually do that. The skill of using the two hip joints differentially, so that you can do that. The skill of articulating all of the joints in the arm. In the sword, the skill of knowing where the blade of the sword is, being able to distinguish hilt from middle of blade from tip of blade. In push hands, the skills of being able to do pung, lu, ji, on, ward off, roll back, press, and push as actually separate motions, rather than just a mishmash of hands and feet. So you got to come back then and look at the skills. We give you a bunch of tools for the skills. And a lot of the drills that we work on have to do with specific skills. So, you know, if you're learning the form, do pay attention to the drills that we're giving you, because those will help you get the skills. And then there's this issue of principles. So Tai Chi is a principle-based art. It's not a dance with a lot of complicated choreography that we memorize and perform, even if it may have aspects of dance and complicated choreography. The choreography and the motions are there to actually help you develop the principles. So use one of the sets of principles. There's a whole bunch of them. Ben Lowe's 5, relax, separate, empty, and full, turn the waist, body upright, beautiful lady's hand. You can come back and look at those and work through your practice revisiting the principles. You can look at Yang Chung Fu's set of 10, available on the website. You can look at the kind of stuff that we talk about in class. You know, any of those sets of principles, come back and evaluate your practice with it. And then what you're going to discover as you do that is now you have another layer of conscious movement that you can come back to. As you work on your techniques, skills, and principles, you will develop new ability to perceive where your body is, to perceive what kind of motions you're making. And you'll discover that in your practice, there's times when you're not aware of what you're doing, where your body isn't where you think it's supposed to be, where you're not making the motion you think you are, or you don't even know what motion you're making. So come back and pay attention to conscious movement. That'll let you work on the techniques at a deeper level. That'll let you actually start developing the skills at a deeper level. That'll let you understand the principles at a deeper level. Lather, rinse, repeat. You'll do it again and again. So these 5 things are really the key to getting a rewarding practice and to making progress. Consistent practice. You gotta practice. The magic happens in your own practice. So if there's barriers to consistent practice, figure out what those are and address it. Conscious movement. This is not a check out for 20 minutes, run on the treadmill, hope that the animal becomes healthy. You need to be there all the way through it, and you need to know exactly what you're doing. What direction are you moving? How's this happening? Conscious movement. Actually focus on the techniques. We give you a lot of checkpoints. We give you a lot of detail. Really do those. Not just approximately, my hand is sort of by my forehead, but no, the hand is a handspan in front of the eyebrow. The other hand is a fist width away from the lower thigh. You're actually there. So work on the details of the techniques. Find the skills that those techniques are developing and work on the skills by themselves. Separating empty and full, driving from the waist, knowing how to do the various sword cuts in push hands, knowing how to do Peng Lu Jian and the other things. Really work on the techniques, the skills. And then come back to principle, because principle's why we're doing this. And use that as a method for actually improving your practice. Consistent practice, conscious movement, technique, skill, principle.